Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good late afternoon, early evening, and welcome back to our segment Divine Femininity United. I'm your girl, Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee, and we are here for another collective reading through an amazing book that is the sequel, you all. The sequel. Never knew it existed. I never knew it existed until this week, actually earlier this week. We were going to reconvene the reading of our book that we were reading through, The Body Keeps the Score, the one that was interrupted for us to read The Shack. And I'm so glad. That was the one of the most beautiful interruptions ever. Okay. I loved it. I'm grateful for it. And usually when that happens, when any interruption happens, I always allow. I used to be one that was so anal about structure and order, and it has to be like this. But I later found out in maturity, okay, I later found out that that was control, needing to be controlled, needing to be so independent and so in control of everything, which I then later found out that that was ego. Yep. That was ego. And yeah, it's no fun there. We think it is, but it's not. And it's way more fun just to simply go with the flow and allow things like interruptions to, shake up the planned program. Allow. There's such peace and freedom in allowing, right? And I allowed spirit to guide us in a different direction, and I'm so grateful for the rerouting. I'm so grateful because the shack blew my mind. Okay, the shack blew my ever loving mind, and in the most magnificent, phenomenal way imaginable. That was the story of Mackenzie Allen Phillip, told to us by Willie Young. But to have been taken on that journey, my God, I was there. I was there. I was absolutely there. I literally saw, it was so beautifully written too. I saw in my, my inner eye, my mind's eye, my first eye. I saw every single thing that was detailed. I felt every single emotion that was felt and described. I smelled every aroma that was in the air. I felt every breeze. I was there. I was there, and I hope and pray that you all had that same stunning experience, because boy, oh boy, oh boy, it was one to be had. And his experience, although my matters were not per se his things that he was stuck in, um, as Christians call strongholds. It's just that. It's that a holding that's so strong on you that you're locked and stuck in place, in one place. Um, and it's keeping you there, and only you can remove yourself from that. Only you deciding to rid yourself and get yourself out of this stuckness can you get out of there. And so my strongholds may not have been his, but I had my own. And so I understood every single thing that he grappled with. I understood it because, man, oh man, oh man, I had areas in me that I grappled with, that it was hard to release, because we find our comfort in that stuckness, y'all. We do. We find our comfort in it. And hmm, I'm about to go somewhere. Hold your mule. A lot of us, a lot of our narrative, a lot of our story, a lot of our reputation is based around the stuckness. So the benefit of staying stuck is attention. I'm just going to say la right there. The benefit, you know, of staying unhealed, of staying, you know, uh unfree. There's a benefit to that we have found our comfort in. And he found his comfort in that. And man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Once he got tired of that, when he got tired of fighting, because this journey should not be a battle. This is not a warfare. We're not in a battle. We're not in a war. We're in a journey of discovery, rediscovery, remembering. Twofold. One, to remember us, and two, to remember, like we dismember, remember. Bring our attachments, our parts back together as one. Remember ourselves. Boy. And he had to go through this journey in order to see his value. But he had to see his value through the lens of God, aka Papa, through the lens of Jesus, through the lens of Sarah you, aka the Holy Spirit. Man, and when he was able to see that, and he also had real reference instead of what he was told, because a lot of the battle that he went through, a lot of the struggle that he went through in his time with Papa, Jesus, and Sarah you was his cognitive dissonance, you know, in full effect, holding on to the quote unquote truths that he had come up knowing, that was ingrained in his subconscious self, it ingrained in his mind, ingrained in his heart, and told that it was true. And that very stuff is what prevented him from actually seeing and experiencing all from the beginning to the end that he could have received and experienced, because it didn't make sense to his conditioning. It went against his programming. Okay. But during that time with Papa, with Jesus, and with Sarah you, his operating system was updated. And he got to know them for himself and not through the lens of somebody else. Okay. And I love that for him. And ever since then, he has not been the same him, which is the mission at hand. Evolution should be the journey. And through his story, I'm quite sure, because if they're anything like me, they also grew and expanded and evolved in a beautiful way. I'm so grateful for that story. And so today we are going to be journeying through the sequel, The Shack Revisited. The Shack Revisited. Isn't that something? I never knew it existed until my aunt, shout out to my aunt, told me about it this week, because we were talking about it and we were talking about the nuggets and things like that. But the author, C. Baxter Kruger, PhD, a fellow doctor, and forwarded by William Paul Young, who is the author of the original Shack, of The Shack. C. Baxter Kruger, I believe it's C. I believe it's a woman. Not sure. If not, then forgive me. C. Baxter Kruger will be breaking down all of the nuggets that was experienced in this journey here for all of us. This I'm super excited about, okay? Because we can really expound. We can get some some good eating out of this. Oh my goodness. So, are you ready? Because I'm ready. Okay, I am ready. At any point during this live session today, you all, if you have anything that you want to share, please do that. Okay, don't stop. Don't stop. Don't hold back. Share your thoughts, share your feelings, share your insights, share your light bulb moments. Share what resonates with you, if you so choose. If not, and you just want to listen in, do that too. It's okay. It's okay. If you would like to have the book, I can show you how you can get it. But if you stick around till the end, I'll let you know. Okay, I'll let you know in the end. But in the meantime, and in between time, this is the Shack Revisited. Okay, and here we go. This is the forward. To all those who took the time to read and study The Shack, to those who bought several copies or a case or more and gave them away and emailed me your wonderful stories, I want to say thank you. And please read The Shack Revisited. If you want to understand better the perspectives and theology that frame The Shack, this book is for you. Baxter has taken on the incredible task of exploring the nature and character of the God who met me in my own shack, a Mississippi theologian who cut his intellectual teeth in Aberdeen, Scotland. With the Torrance brothers, Baxter is a unique cross of intellectual brilliance and creative genius. He fashions lures that are so beautiful people hang them on their walls rather than actually fish with them, which to Baxter is a crying shame. According to him, everything in creation should be put to its extended intended use, whether bass, beer, or barth. He is a master of making difficult things understandable for the rest of us. If you found hope and encouragement through the shack, this book will help you take more steps in knowing the love of Papa, Sarah, you, and Jesus. It has now been a few years since I penned a story for my six mostly grown children, trying to get it done by Christmas in the busyness of working three jobs and life. I thought I was building them a rowboat, you know the kind, with a couple of oars and just enough room to take them out on the lake two at a time. Surprising everyone, especially me, it came out a super tanker that has since plowed its way through the ocean of humanity, leaving behind a cosmic wake. If you chance a glance at the name of the ship, you will see is christened God's sense of humor. My spiritual upbringing was eclectic and mostly solitary. Even though I attended Bible school and seminary, it was for me a lonely journey accompanied by the one dimensional voices of dusty pages and cassette speeches and sermons. One wouldn't call Saren Kierkegaard exactly fun company. But along with him and others such as Jacques Ellul, George MacDonald, Malcolm Smith, Jean Vanier, C.S. Lewis, and a host of dead and living writers and theologians, and a lot of rock and roll, I made my way through the wastelands and into what? I wasn't sure. I had discovered that the island on which I was a castaway was also inhabited by a plethora of musicians and poets, writers, thinkers, and comedians, each with something to share. Sometimes an insight, sometimes an encouragement. The shack has also been a raft on which I have journeyed out into the vastness of the sea to discover the family of faith that I had not known. I had heard the names, but never met them in person. I discovered my roots and found that my family tree extended to names like Athanasius and Torrance, Barth, Polycarp, Irenaeus, and so many more, crossing boundaries set by religious divisions and faith cultures. There's been a tumult of response to the shack, the vast majority of it positive. In emails alone, I have well over 100,000 stories sharing how the book has intersected the lives of precious people on wildly divergent journeys, from the helping community, those who actually work in the arenas of healing with real people by way of psychology, spiritual formation, step programs, psychiatry, pastoral care, and so on. I've yet to receive one negative comment or review. What matters to these healers is that something actually works and is of value and aid to those they care for and treasure. Criticisms have come almost exclusively from religious folks, and I'm not intending the term in a pejorative sense. Of course, there are those who have taken a position without having read the book for themselves. thereby discounting their right to even pretend an opinion. But there are others who truly feel the weight of responsibility to protect the flock of the faithful and to defend God against the intrusion of heresy or seductive doctrines. We are grateful for these brothers and sisters who are a part of the family conversation, and we have carefully considered their responses. The shack was never intended to be a systematic theology or another book of pragmatic proof texts useful for badgering unwitting unbelievers into religious submission. It is fiction and it is a story. It is an utterly human tale, rife with the mystery of journey and failure, of loss and uncertainty, of deep and precious desires and questions. It is a scratching at the surface of formulaic religion and performance driven culture to see if behind their murky exteriors we might excavate a rumor of glory or a sense of breath of life that might gently fan the embers of hope and the will to authenticity. Please don't misunderstand me. The shack is theology, but it is theology wrapped in story. The word becoming flesh and living inside the blood and bones of common human experience. If you believe, as I do, that everything finds its source, meaning, value, identity, worth, security, and significance inside relationship, and foremost in one's relationship with God, then all of life falls within the purview of theology, the living word of God's reality and presence. What you have in your hands or what you're listening to is the beginning of what Baxter and I hope will be more to come. This book sets the framework and boundaries. It is an attempt to paint a bigger picture, elucidating a pre enlightenment, pre Reformation, indeed, an early church vision of the beautiful life of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit and their dream for the human race. Here, Plato and dualism have no voice. This perspective and vision, visible through the window of the shack, has provided, is now enlarged and articulated here in accessible and comprehensible language. And I hope the emergent picture that Baxter is painting on this word canvas stuns you into wonder, worship, and possibility. Eventually, Baxter and I would like to deal, among other things, with history to help us understand how we got so far off course, with theology that asks the hardest and best questions, and with the implications that must necessarily arise out of such conversations. If what we are trying to unveil and communicate is true, how does this affect our thinking about heaven, hell, evangelism, homosexuality, work, the role of women, politics, religion, science, the sacred secular divide, commerce, education, the nature of the church, the process of transformation, healing, and everything else? We would then like to see this reality worked out in the flesh of everyday experience. We hope to gather together people who can communicate with us with this vision, what this vision looks like in their own spheres of interest and passion: astrophysics, mothering, arts, media, music, plumbing, farming, fathering, business leadership, pastoring, caring for the planet, medicine, day laboring, teaching, dance, you name it. Many of us grew up on the ship of Western enlightenment, rationalism, and dualism, a vessel that, without a course of correction, will find itself grounded on the beach of increasing irrelevance. This ship's intelligentsia can be found in the galley, lost in the bowels of deep and mysterious conversation while the world goes sailing by and the rest of us slumber in our great sadness. I don't believe we need a new theology. Rather, we must revisit the early and initial and better understand these roots. We must cultivate the vision of the original evangels who saw all of the existence and reality only in the light of the person of Jesus and his relationship with his Father and the Spirit. So, with open arms, my friend Baxter and I, along with myriad others, invite you to revisit the world of the shack, the world where Papa's affection is unending. Jesus' faith in you is as strong as cabbage, as Baxter would say, and the Spirit's hope is wider than the cosmos. A world where you matter, and Papa is especially fond of you. written by William Paul Young, the author of The Shack. Okay, that was good, and I love that. I love conversation that provokes further thought. I do, because thoughts need to be provoked. They do. We need to expand ourselves. We need to stretch out of the box that we've made so comfortable. Okay. Here we go. The prologue. It is entitled The Cadillac Stand. In mid-October of 2007, Wendy Marchand of Ste Marie, Canada, rang me on the phone. Her first words were, "Baxter, I'm not getting off the phone until you promise me that you will read a book called The Shack." My first thought was, "Wendy, come on, not you." From time to time, people send me manuscripts of the best book that has ever been written, quote unquote. And then 2 and 3 days later, an email follows wanting to know what I thought of the book. But Wendy is no stranger. In fact, she's a dear friend, a sister who loves me and prays for me and my family all the time. So, with my mind shuffling between not again, but this is Wendy, I asked her what the book was about. "Baxter, I'm not going to tell you. It would ruin it. Just trust me on this one." "Okay, Wendy, here's what I'll do. Deer season is just around the corner. So I'll get this book and I'll put it on the top of my deer stand reading pile." And I did. A month later, on the opening day of gun season, I headed for my deer stand. The shack dutifully placed in my backpack. Now understand, I am not much of a deer hunter. I have only killed 3 deer in my entire life, but I love being in the woods. So some years ago, my friend Jeff and I built what we affectionately call the Cadillac stand, complete with tin roof, carpet, and 2 seriously comfortable chairs. For me, it's more an outdoor study and a private sanctuary with fantastic views. In the Cadillac, I read, write, pray, and sometimes hunt. So I walked up the stairs, got everything situated, sat down, and opened the shack. The opening words from Willie's introduction got my attention. Who wouldn't be skeptical when a man claims to have spent an entire weekend with God in a shack, no less? So I thought to myself, this is a book about a man meeting God in the woods, in a shack? That's good. I wonder if this shack is an old hunting camp. But which God? That's the question. And please tell me this is not going to be the same old, same old. But then came the story of Mac's dad, tying him to a tree and beating him for 2 days. And then the phrase, the great sadness. And then the Motomo princess story. Then Missy. And then I found myself crying my eyes out in the Cadillac. With my soul ripped open, I wailed. When they found Missy's dress in the shack, I stood up, blew my nose, dried my tears, and shook the shack in my right hand. "William P. Young, I don't know who you are, but I promise you this. If you deliver the same old distant, untouchable, legalistic God who scans the universe with his disapproving heart as the answer to this gut wrenching trauma, I will take your book and walk 200 yards, lean it against a tree, and personally eliminate this copy from the cosmos." But the brother delivered. Paul Young knows Jesus is Abba. The shack is not about the disapproving God of our fallen imagination. It is about the shocking fondness of the triune, okay, God for sinners. It is about the freedom of the Father, Son, and Spirit to love and to embrace us in our terrible brokenness. It's about the determined passion of the blessed Trinity to deliver us from ourselves so that we can live loved because we are. We belong to the Father, the Son, and Spirit. We always have and always will. We just can't see it. And because we can't see it, we live with the poisoning weight of Mac's burden, which we unwittingly share with all around us, including creation. There is no more beautiful picture of the truth of the triune God than the scene of Papa lifting Mackenzie Allen Phillips off his feet in the greatest hug in the universe. I was stunned and thrilled again. Somewhere inside, we all know it to be so, that this is what Jesus's Abba is like, that this is the truth that sets us free, that this divine love is real. And it just does not square in my head, in our heads, with our entrenched ideas, laden as they are with our proof texts and wounded hearts, with what Athanasius called mythology. I read all afternoon, determined to finish after dark, but I didn't make it. So I sat riveted in the Cadillac with a flashlight in my mouth until my son texted me that he was waiting at our base camp. That's that's so good. This is C. Baxter saying how he felt as he was reading this story. My goodness, I'm telling you, I was stuck to it just like that too, you all. Okay, next portion, the story behind the story. Never intended for publication, The Shack was written by William P. Young, known to his friends as Paul, as a story for his children. He had two aims. First, to give a gift that would express his love for his kids, and second, to help them understand what had been going on in his inside world. As his friend Willie put it, Paul's goal was to get the story to Office Depot before Christmas and to make 15 copies for his children, his wife, and a few others. But even working three jobs, there wasn't enough money. Eventually, copies were made and the story circulated through his family and friends. He was encouraged to have it published as a proper book, but found that it was rejected by every publisher he contacted as being too out of the box or having too much Jesus. That's wild. That is wild. For Paul, its actual publication as a real book, now one of the best-selling books in history, is lagniappe, as the Cajuns say, a little something extra. His dream was fulfilled when the first copies were made and his children had a story that would explain something of their father's journey into the real world. I heard Paul say that he reached the point in his life when he cried out, Papa, I am never again going to ask you to bless something that I do, but if you have something that you are blessing that I could share in, I would love that. And I don't care if it's cleaning toilets, a hole in the door open, or shining shoes. And Papa replied, Paul, I'll tell you what. How about I bless this little story you are writing for your kids? You give it to yours, and I will give it to mine. The rest, as they say, is history. But is it? There is far more going on in an average person's life than anyone would dare to dream. And that is certainly true of Paul Young. The Shack is not a novel written by an academic who finally learned to communicate with regular people. There's a story behind the story. Several stories, in fact, but I will stick to Willie's explanation to help them understand what had been going on in his inside world. The inside world, the world of the invisibles, of pain and turmoil, of shame, broken hearts, and broken dreams, is the world that drives us all, and especially the larger than life tales in the Shack. The story behind the story is the gut wrenching hell that Paul Young suffered in his own life. I've seen a picture of Paul when he was 6 years old. He looked like an old man, weary, miserable, spent, and terribly sad. His eyes screamed despair. The picture made me cry. But that is the beginning of this story we have all, or at least most of us, come to love. By the time Paul was 6 years old, he had been emotionally abandoned, physically and verbally beaten, and sexually abused repeatedly. To say the least, he was crippled inside from his early days in life. No child, no person can withstand such trauma. It creates a lethal rule of shame, fear, insecurity, anxiety, and guilt. These invisibles coalesce into a damning, debilitating, and unshakable whisper. I'm not all right. I'm not good, not worthy, not important, not lovable, but not human, which haunts every single moment of life. How does a child of or anyone cope with an inner world of such anguish. No one can. As a fish was not made to live on the moon, we were never designed to live in shame. But what do? Where do you go? Most of us bury it all in a garbage can in the back room of our souls and move on, or try to. But what we bury rules us. What we don't know that we don't know will destroy us. I am not becomes I will be. And we dream a dream of becoming. If I can just get married and have children, if I could just get that job or promotion, that money, that car, that house, that power, that position, that new relationship, and off we go. But such things are incompetent to address spiritual pain. They never work, though we will defend them till they kill us. So we medicate, go on autopilot, check out, or we stay busy. We get involved in a great cause, manage other people's inner worlds, live through our children, or just stay drunk in one way or another. It's too much to cope with head on. Paul Young turned to religion, partly because it was the environment he grew up in and therefore readily available, and partly because it presented a possible way to perform his way into becoming valuable. He was born in Alberta, Canada, but before his first birthday found himself on the mission field in the highlands of Netherlands, New Guinea, West Papua. Around the age 6, as was required by the particular mission board, he was shipped off to boarding school. Before he turned 10, the family unexpectedly returned to Canada. And by the time he graduated from high school, Paul had attended 13 different schools. His dad had made the change from missionary to pastor. These facts don't tell you about the pain of trying to adjust to different cultures, of life losses that were almost too staggering to bear, of walking down railroad tracks at night in the middle of winter screaming into the windstorm, of living with an underlying volume of shame so deep and loud that it constantly threatened any sense of sanity, of dreams not only destroyed by obliterated by personal failure, of hope so tenuous that only the trigger seemed to offer a solution. Religion was the only world Paul knew. The cards he had been dealt, so he played them. He believed in the religious version of Christianity. He had to, with "I am not good" whispering in every breeze. He set out to prove that he was. He graduated at the top of his class in college, became a shining star, a people pleasing religious performer on his way to the top. But every moment involved the exhausting task of hypervigilance, constantly scanning each group, each discussion, each meeting and moment to manage people's impressions of him. For how can any of us let people know of the dying inside? With one hand pushing down on the lid of his garbage can, he smiled, taught the Bible, and became the nice guy, the counselor, while keeping everyone at a safe distance. But he found no relief from the raging turmoil in his inner world. He cried out to God for healing, rededicating himself and his life 100 times, 100 times until his rededicator finally burnt out. His life became a form of hiding while he desperately searched for relief and help anywhere he could find it. But there is no healing in religion. Healing happens when you meet Jesus in your garbage can or your shack, a place Paul, like most of us, tried hard to deny even existed. He performed himself into ministry, into business, into marriage, into fatherhood, trying to point the exhaustion, trying to the point of exhaustion to become an authentic person, an authentic human being, while hiding the underlying shame and personal failures. A single phone call. Hello, 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 welcome, welcome. A single phone call rocked his world forever. Two words, in fact. I know. Kim, Paul's wife, had found out about the affair he was having with one of her friends. An affair is one way that shame works its poison in our lives. There are millions of others, of course, but one is that we turn to another person, a magical other, who will be our all, our life, our salvation. I suspect Paul found out what the poet meant when he said, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." But that's not the whole truth. Heaven has no ally like a woman who knows how to love. The dedication in Paul's book reads, "To Kim, my beloved, thank you for saving my life." While Mackenzie's weekend at the shack represents 11 years of Paul's actual life, 11 years of pain and emotional torture, depression, and mere flashes of hope, it was Kim's heroic love wrapped in fury that held it all together. From a human perspective, without Kim and her heart, Paul Young would probably be dead, tucked away in some cold asylum, or an empty man still performing. There would have been no story to tell, at least not one about the meeting blessed Trinity in the garbage can. On the other side of hell, as real freedom and life began to dawn, it was Kim who insisted that Paul write something for the children to explain his journey and newfound liberation. She didn't mean a book, and neither did Paul, but most folks are thrilled that it all turned out this way. On more than one occasion, I have heard him speak of Kim and their children with tears streaming down his face. The book was born in the crucible of life, of trauma and abuse, of empty religion, misery and betrayal, of mercy, love, and reconciliation. Luther said somewhere that God makes theologians by sending them to hell. In hell, of course, no one is interested in mere theology. In the emptiness of grief, in the pain, the trauma of suffering, we are not interested in pseudo promises, intellectual masturbation, or Skippy the Wonder Christ, as my friend Ken Blue puts it. What we learn in hell is that we want out. We learn desperation for life, for healing, for real salvation, for a Savior who saves here and now, not or who reconciles, who heals our brokenness and delivers us from our shame. We need something that works. This is the story behind the story. The shack could have easily been titled From Hell to Heaven, or From Overwhelming Shame to Being Loved into Life, or How Jesus Healed a Screwed Up Man, or even With Gods Like Ours. No wonder we are so sad and broken. For the story is about hell and heaven, trauma and shame, and finding love. The real Jesus accepting a broken man. And it is about the Father, Son, and Spirit finding us in the far country of our terrible and powerless mythology to share their life with us. For the truth behind the universe is that God is Father, Son, and Spirit, and the one and Mother. And the one unflinching purpose of the blessed Trinity is that we would come to taste and feel, to know and experience the very Trinitarian life itself. What Paul and Kim have lived through and have discovered in the love of Papa, Jesus, Sarayu, is the joy inexpressible and full of glory that Peter talked about, and the abounding life that Jesus promised. They cannot go back to the same old do more, try harder religion with its properly attested Bible verses. Like C.S. Lewis, in the midst of misery, they were surprised by joy. Some have taken offense at the theology of the shack. Paul's response is not one of the theological argument or biblical proof texting, though he is very adept at both. His response is his own life and relationships. He would say, I have a t-shirt from hell, several of them, in fact. Religion doesn't work anywhere, and especially there, but the Father, Son, and Spirit came to find me in my hell. They accepted me, loved me, embraced me, and are healing me with their love. I think Paul would also ask a simple question. How's your theology working for you? And knowing Paul, he would follow that with, how does your wife or husband and your friends think your theology is working for you? I know that's right. I tell people all the time, if you may think you're doing well, ask the people around you, the ones that love you. They'll tell you your truth. Okay. Yes, that is so true. So while the shack is a story for his children, it is a bit more complicated than that. This story is a matter of life or death. Paul Young is serious. He wants his own children to see the disastrous incompetence of religion to heal our broken souls. And he wants them to know the astonishing liberation of Papa's embrace. Father, Son, and Spirit, whom he calls Papa, Jesus, and sorry, you are not myths like Santa Claus, the white, blue eyed Jesus, and the Tooth Fairy. They are real. They meet us in our pain, in our anger, bitterness, and resentment, in our shame and guilt and powerlessness, in our miserable, broken relationships, and in our deadly religion. And there they love us into life and freedom. Hence the second dedication to all us stumblers who believe love rules. Stand up and let it shine. Yes. Oh my goodness. Listen, this I love this already, you all. And this is just the entry, the intro. I love reading the preface, the prologues, and all of that because I'm telling you, in there are nuggets as well. I love it, love it, love it. So that is the real story behind the shack, behind the actual person that the shack is about. Oh man, that is so cool. Okay. That's the story behind the story. Okay. So his name was not Mackenzie Allen Phillips. His name was William Paul Young. Okay. So his friends call him Paul. Man. So William Young, who wrote the book, the actual author, is who this story is about, but he interchanged his name with a fictional character. I get it, okay, because I do know that the Shack said that the original Shack said this was based on a true story. So, but I'm thinking that Mackenzie was a real person. Okay, I love that. See, this is good. This is good. Okay, so that was the story behind the story. Now, the next section is called The Story Within the Story. All right, here we go. Like Paul Young, though for different reasons, Mackenzie Allen Phillips is a shattered man. A few years ago, he began living a parent's worst nightmare. His youngest daughter, Missy, was kidnapped, murdered, and thrown away. Okay, now we get into the actual story of the shack, okay, that we just finished reading. It all happened during Labor Day weekend, the summer's last hurrah before another year of school and autumn routines. Mac took three of his kids on a camping trip. It was then that Missy was taken. Since then, Mac has been trapped in what is called the Great Sadness, as he calls it, a gross and unholy. Yes, his pseudonym. Yes, Uriel. Yes, yes, yes. Where did I go? Okay. Oh, I think I missed it. Okay, a gross and unholy cesspool of his own helplessness, Missy's absence, and the silence of God. He is surrounded by four great kids and his wife Nan, who knows how to love. But Mac's inner world is as gnarled as a box of loose coat hangers. He is trying to live in his grief, but hell itself would be a relief for those who suffer the loss of a child. Trust me, I know. Been there, done that. It is just wrong, overwhelming. You will never again hear your daughter's laughter, see her smile, or hear her speak your name, except in nightmares. There will be no sleepovers, no first dates, no boyfriends, no proms, no field trips, no shared pain, no surprises. It's all over, gone, like the last ray of light before dark. And then there is silence. The grief of it all, the despair and anger and guilt and powerlessness swirl together to cast a spell of numbness on your being. Your mind is dazed. Your capacity to notice, to connect, to feel alive, to feel others, to feel anything slows like molasses in winter as the hurt dissolves the color of a rose. And the world becomes essentially joyless. And then the horrible quiet of absence begins eating away the memories. The great sadness drains the life of your already broken soul, stilling your very sense of being alive. Then there are the horrible dreams of powerlessness. Mac dreams of being stuck in mud, frantically trying to scream a warning to Missy, but no sound ever emerges from his screams. He wakes in a sweat, emotionally tortured, full of guilt, stewing in regret, helpless and despairing. Then there is the question of God. Why did this happen? Where was God? Why did he allow Missy to be taken? Didn't he care? Max mind races, trying to find some way to make sense out of such appalling injustice. But anger, blame, resentment fester in the scars of his wound. You don't believe that Father loves his children very well, do you? You don't truly believe that God is good, do you? Said Sophia. Sophia asked. Sophia, if you remember in the book, was the judge. She presented herself as the judge. Is Missy his child? Max snapped. Of course, she answered. Then no, he blurted, rising to his feet. I don't believe that God loves all his children very well. Isn't that your just complaint, Mackenzie? That God has failed you? That he failed Missy? That before the creation, God knew that one day your Missy would be brutalized and still he created? And then he allowed that twisted soul to snatch her from your loving arms when he had the power to stop him? Isn't God to blame, Mackenzie? Yes, God is to blame. Lost in the cosmos of his pain, Mac is left holding the bag of God's incompetence. In such a place, reality looked at steadily is unbearable. Bewildered and angry, he has quietly become a broken, tired ghost of a man. The days, months, and years pass by, mired in his great sadness. Then, on an icy winter day, he slips and slides his way to his mailbox to discover a single note from God. And it reads, Mackenzie, it's been a while. I've missed you. I'll be at the shack next weekend if you want to get together. Signed, Papa. And so it begins the tale of the healing of Mackenzie Allen Phillips. His liberation involves the thrilling love of the Father, Son, and Spirit in patient, tender care and astonishing respect for Mac. They meet him in his nightmare and torture and nurture him through a revolution in his notions of God, the purpose of human existence, who he is and who others are, the meaning of Jesus' death, and what it means to live life. While Paul Young may never have intended the story for publication, that is not to say that the Holy Ghost and Spirit didn't have plans of its own. The wild popularity of the shack tells us that something in this story strikes a very deep and common chord. And while Mac is a fictitious character, he is no foreigner to any of us. This is the story within the story. We are Mackenzie. He is us. We may not have lost a child so brutally as Mac, but not one of us left our own childhood without wounds. And I dare guess that most of us have had a belly full of pain and bitter disappointment. Mac's hurt is intense, and his pain raises questions that are deep. And they are our questions too. He is caught between the proverbial rock of a terrible tragedy and the hard place of a God who is silent, if not cruel. And that hard place haunts us. Mac has nowhere to go in his pain. His religion is inept at best. He is alone on his own, bearing the horror of Missy's death as a man with no answers. So the story within the story is that the shack is our story too. The story of our pain and blindness, of the God who seems so absent, so uncaring and impotent when it really matters, and of our lives paused in shame. But it is also the story of our liberation, if we want it to be. In that moment, when Papa opened the door of the shack and embraced a broken, saddened Mackenzie Allen Phillips in utter love, was it not the case with you that an ancient hope sprang to life in your soul? Did you not cry? It's a love story that we desperately want to believe, but we can't. We know it's true, but how could it be? One scene raises a universe of questions. Could God be this good? Could I be so wrong? Could it be this simple? Yes, yes, yes. Jack found no real help in the very religion with which many of us have grown up. To be sure, he eventually found serious healing, but the price was the deconstruction of almost everything he had ever been told about God, about himself and others, about life. though not of what he had heard whispered to him in the spirit. And here is the fascinating part for me as a theologian. What Mackenzie discovered was the sheer goodness and love of the Father, Son, and Spirit, the ancient truth that once changed the world. The shack is the voice of the early church, calling us back from our craziness to our true home in Father, Son, and Spirit. The story within the story is that Paul Young, through the tragic life and healing of Mackenzie Allen Phillips, has found a way to still behind the watchful dragons of our deisms, legalism, and rationalism, and introduce us to the truth that sets us free. And the truth is a person who shares life and all things in other centered love with his Father, in the wonderful freedom of the Holy Spirit, and a person who has crossed all worlds to find us in our pain, and a person who brought his Papa and the Holy Spirit with him. Somewhere inside, we know it's true, but we're afraid. For when you pull on this thread, a lot of rug begins to unravel. Nevertheless, just when you fear that your world is vanishing, you discover that someone is weaving a new carpet of unimaginable simplicity, freedom, and life. In the midst of the story, when Mac is being loved through a 15 or so step process of healing, Sophia exhorts him with words that all lovers of life must heed. They are, maybe your understanding of God is wrong. And then Sarah Yu, who's the spirit in the book, says, be willing to re-examine what you believe. Yes, sir. Be willing to re-examine what you believe. Because some of us, you all, it's our beliefs that keeps us stuck. I want that. I left that as a pregnant pause. It's our beliefs that keeps us stuck. What do you believe? And therein, you will find the reason why things are not going the way that you want them to go. Maybe your understanding of God is wrong. Hello. Yes, to the people that's been going to church for 72 years. Yep. It is actually true that you probably have never truly met the real Father, the real God, the real Mother, the real infinite intelligent one, the real creator, the real I am. Have you ever met the real one? Okay. Or have you met the one that somebody told you about? Right? We have to understand that we don't see the thing for what it is. We see it from where we are. And guess what else? Those who are teaching it may or may not see it for what it is either. They may see it from where they are. So, did they teach it to you from where they were, or did they teach it to you from what it was, who God was, what spirit is? Urel in Clubhouse says, that's why religion in its essence is debilitating. It means to bind and tie down. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm telling you. Okay, next section, the phone call. Let me look and see who's on YouTube Clubhouse. Okay, all right. You all are loving it. I love you all too. Thank you for being here. I thank you. Thank you. We're airing Clubhouse, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're everywhere, you all. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you. If you have something to share, please do. Please do. Please do. Next section, the phone call. Here we go. A little over a week after I read The Shack in the Cadillac stand, my son and I were watching Eli Manning and the New York Giants on TV when my cell phone rang. It was Sunday afternoon. As I looked at the number, my son asked who it was. I don't know this number. Where's the 503 area code? Got no idea, he said. It's not from around here. I don't either, I muttered and moved my finger to the mute call. When something old told me, when something told me, okay, this is, forgive me, when something told me to answer. Hello, this is Baxter. Baxter, this is Paul Young. The name didn't register at all. I don't know a Paul Young. I thought to myself as my mind reeled through people I've met in my travels. You may know me as William Paul Young, I whispered to myself, the name still not registering. Then it hit me and I blurted out, William P. Young. I am, he said in a way that I could tell he was enjoying himself. The William P. Young? Well, I don't know about the part, but I am William P. Young. My friends call me Paul. Are you the dude that wrote like the best book that has ever been written in the last 500 years? I don't know about that, but I wrote The Shack. Dude, why in the world are you calling me? The whole world wants to talk with you. Well, I got an email from your friend, Tim Brassel. He said that I needed to get in touch with you because you have written the theology that goes with The Shack. So I called. It took me a full 5 minutes before I could believe what was happening. And then I told him about the Cadillac stand and he laughed. And then I asked 1,000 questions and he answered most of them. An hour and a half later, we said goodbye. And I immediately phoned Tim and told him what had happened. I was already scheduled to do a conference for Tim and Bill Wynn at Bill's church in Virginia in April. So I was eager to get Tim and Bill to invite Paul, which they did. Since that phone call and the April conference, Paul and I have become close friends, and I had the privilege of teaching with him on the shack in 3 countries. It is always amazing to hear his story, and equally amazing that so many millions of people relate so readily both to Mackenzie's struggle and to Paul's life. Let me relate a story that gives some perspective on Paul and a hint on the appeal of the shack. Paul and I were touring across Australia in November 2008. We were with singer songwriter Vanessa Kirstein and just settling in for a flight from Melbourne to Brisbane. Vanessa and I were sitting together, and Paul was somewhere behind us when over the intercom came the captain's voice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain speaking. Today we have a very special guest on board. Smiling, I turned to Vanessa and said, someone found out that Paul is on the plane. She smiled too, and then the captain said, today is Baxter Kruger's 50th birthday. With that, the passengers erupted in cheer and applause. I was shocked and a little embarrassed, and as I turned around, waving and thanking the people, I caught the gleaming eye of Paul Young, grinning from ear to ear like a little boy who had surprised his parents with a special gift. Such a gesture meant the world to me on my birthday, especially as I was halfway around the world from my own family. But what struck me was that in spite of all the trauma that Paul had endured, he was getting to play. What Willie said about Mac is true of Paul. But I have to tell you that I've never been around another adult who lives life with such simplicity and joy. Somehow he has become a child again, or maybe more accurately, he's become the child he never was allowed to be, abiding in simple trust and wonder. I think this freedom sings throughout the story, and it's the haunting tune we all long to hear and to live to, for it is our song too. Yes, 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 you all. Ooh, that's so good. I'm excited. Okay, so just as we did before, okay, because I really would, I'm eager to go into the actual book, but I'm going to pause because we will be here all night. And as I don't like to keep you on long on Sundays, that's which is why we go live twice a week, Tuesdays at 8, Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern, both times, Eastern Standard Time, okay? I only like to go at least 2 chapters and then conclude. I don't like to keep you more than an hour. I really, really don't. But I will say this. I thank you for being here. If you want your copy of this book, it's a PDF copy. If you want your copy, let me know. Request a copy, send me your email, and I'll send it to you. It is free of charge. Any book that I've ever read online is free to you. Okay, it's free to you. It'll be a Google Drive document, so you'll receive it via Google Drive. I'll send it to you so that you can have it. Okay, I'll send it to you so you can have it. But I want you to know that you can have it so you can follow along with us. If you want to go ahead, you can do that too. Okay. Now, yes, Uriel said, yes, simplicity and joy. I know. Simplicity and joy. Isn't that something? Isn't that wonderful to have simplicity and joy? That's it right there. That's life. That's the desire of life, simplicity and joy. Now, we're going to go into starting on Tuesday, you all. We're going to read part 1. There's different parts of the book, okay? So part 1 is entitled Some First Thoughts on Papa, okay? We're going to go into that one. Let me see. Let me scroll down and see what else. Okay, so we have chapter 2, The Dancing God, okay? We might even, depending on how short the chapters, they seem pretty short. We might even go on. We're gonna go on for an hour. So however we can, however many chapters we can get in, we'll do that. Chapter 3, Light from Lewis. So yeah, so we'll be doing that. We'll be reading collectively come Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 Central, and that is 5 Pacific. Okay, get your book, get your book, get your book. You can read it along with us. I would love that you do that, or you can read it on your own if your schedules and when we meet collide. It's no problem as long as you have it. But request the book. Now, are we a nonprofit organization? Yes, we are. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so we do accept donations, but no, donations are welcome. They are not required. Okay, they are never required. Right? You can sow your seed. It's definitely good ground, but you don't have to you don't have to sow a seed in order to get the book. Okay, so with that being said, that is it for now. I want you to do me a favor. There's a couple of things that I want you to do. Again, send me an email with your information, okay? Send me an email to info@biancamissblee.com. Info@biancamissblee.com. For those who are watching via video, it is on the screen. For those who are on Clubhouse, you can just tap above me. Tap above me. My website is there. You can send a message to me. I will receive it. Let me know if you're inquiring about the book. Just go ahead and tell me which email address to send it to. I will do just that. Or you can send me an inquiry. You can ask me a question. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to utilize some services, all of my services are right there in my shop area. My services, my courses. If you want to book me to speak, to interview, to do a course, do a program with you at your facility, at your work, at your company, we can work that out and we can talk about that. Again, you want to utilize the services. You want to get readings. You want to do birth natal chart. You want to go through the therapy process. You want to be coached in different areas. I am proficient in all things. Just to give you a brief background of what I have, what I do. I am a 5-time certified coach in many different areas in life and purpose. I'm a master life and purpose coach and so many other areas. And then I hold a doctorate in cognitive behavioral therapy. So I am a psychiatrist. Okay. I do psychology. I am proficient in working with special needs children also. Okay. Behavior analyst. I also am a spiritual mentor and teacher. I hold a spiritual certification and accommodations from Harvard in spirituality and entrepreneurship from Cornell. Okay. I am learned. Okay. I do a lot of different things, but I'm also learned and developed and still developing spiritually in everything. Okay. That I am proficient in doing, that I'm gifted and anointed in doing. All right. So if you want to utilize anything that I do, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it all. Go to my website and you can inquire about it. I'll be there for you. Okay. Visit the website. It is BiancaMissBlee.com. BiancaMissBlee.com. Again, those on Clubhouse, you can just tap above and you'll be right there. Okay. Follow me on social media, you all. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, okay, Twitter, Clubhouse, wherever, LinkedIn. It is Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Okay. Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Alrighty, you all, listen. That concludes today. I'm excited to be back here because every time we finish a book, I always give you 1 week break so that you can kind of breathe, woosah, recollect, restore your mind and all of that stuff, refresh yourself or whatever, so that we can get to our next, almost like a palate cleanser. Cleanse your palate from the last book, but didn't know that there was a sequel to The Shack. And of course, we had to start it. We had to go straight into the Shack Revisited. Okay, I'm so grateful. If you want the Shack as well, so you can kind of read that book and be caught up on what it is that we're going to be referencing along this reading here. You can do that as well. Request whatever books, any book that we have ever read. There is a PDF version for you to have on for yourself. Okay, alrighty, you all. Listen, I love you. I mean it. There is absolutely, positively nothing, and I mean nothing, that you can do about it. Okay? We'll see you back here on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at Divine Femininity United. Peace.